morning and welcome to Profit Fundamentals. The market's a little subdued, complete lack of triggers as far as Asia is concerned. Mind you, most of the Asian markets, with the exception of just a few, are shut today on account of the Lunar New Year holiday. So again, a subdued session on the Lal Street. Good morning, Samina.
Morning, Asha.
Fundamentals, but I'll toss it over to my colleague Sunal Sachdev, who's joining us now on Deep Focus. Sunal.
Yeah, Ashu, joint venture issues there, but we're going to change tack in Deep Focus. Currencies is what we're talking about. There has been a lot of concern about where the dollar's headed. Greece, another week. European economies have brought the euro back into focus. And then there's talk of the yuan, perhaps repegging of the Chinese currency. Some Goldman Sachs says maybe 5% up move there. We have Jamal Mecklai with us. Morning, Mr. Mecklai. Good to have you with us. First off, to kick off, the RBI governor was talking about, the next crisis. He said the next crisis could either be in the credit market or the currency market. What do you make of that? Do you think there is a crisis that might unfold in the currency market?
Well, I think clearly, crisis is a big word, all right? Clearly the dollar has been stronger than people had expected. Frankly, I must claim credit that we had actually called that. I didn't really know that Greece was going to fall apart or appear to fall apart. But I think that basically, if you look at up till last year, for the previous 3 years, the dollar had been falling and falling and falling and falling. It appears to have turned around. My sense is we could see continued dollar strength. Perhaps and possibly substantially greater strength if the European crisis does unfold. I think the impact on India, the dollar strengthens, everything else weakens, but the rupee, because India is India and because we have got, clearly this is the place to invest. People are interested in investing in India. I don't think even if the dollar strengthens substantially, the rupee would weaken too much. Right? The second issue you raised, the yuan, is very interesting. I had actually thought that the Chinese, would start their move to strengthen it yesterday, because right after Chinese New Year. Well, they didn't do that, they don't listen to me. What can I say?
Yeah, Jamal. But yeah, interesting point, you're being made about the yuan. But let's just try and shift back focus again to the euro. We have seen, it depreciate significantly, roughly about 10%. Since the end of last calendar, and the issues on Greece, the other weak economies, whether the euro is really going to hold together, all of that is being called into question, and therefore a currency that was once seen as an option to the dollar now suddenly looks very weak. Where do you see it headed?
Well, as I said, there is a risk that the euro could weaken substantially more if the markets tend to really gang up, if you will, against it. But there's a lot of talk that this could well be a trial by fire, and this could actually result in European unification becoming more rather than less. It's a very tricky job. Just to, when the euro was launched, there was a lot of uncertainty about whether it could sustain. It's been about 10, 12 years. It's done reasonably well, but the hot spots are showing, how do you run a two-speed economy? One size doesn't fit all, and Europe is not politically one country. So these are all the issues which are out there to see. My sense, and there's no way of knowing it, is I don't think the world is going to fall apart. So in other words, I don't think the euro is going to explode or implode. I think we will have a crisis, we will resolve it, we will have more crises. That's the nature of the world, that's the nature of markets. The important thing, and I think the real lesson from the last, well, I shouldn't say the last, it's still going on, the global crisis, is that regulators have to become hipper. I think the regulators in India have done very well, and I think in the US they have failed miserably. And I think it's partly because they the regulated became the regulators. So I think that's really the essence. You cannot hide from crises. That is a fact of life, and you have to just figure out how to deal with them.
Right. Just to, take up on your point on regulators and on the crisis, I'm going back to what Dr. Subbarao was saying in terms of, the crisis, the possibility of crisis in the currency markets, and B, saying that, you know, if he finds that, you know, the inflows are leading to asset bubbles, the RBI might act. What do you see? Do you see any risk to India of any kind of currency crisis that might happen? And on the flows, do you expect some kind of RBI action given the way the liquidity is?
Well, see, I think India is still pretty reasonably well insulated. You know, I don't think the global markets are in the state of fire that they were 3 or 4 years ago, to where, you know, money was pouring into India and all sorts of other places that could not be contained. So I don't think we're going to see the kind of inflows that we saw in 2007. So from that perspective, I don't think there's really going to be a crisis. But I think Dr. Subba Rao, you know, he's sort of laying the groundwork. I mean, if things do happen, I mean, he should do whatever he needs to do. You know, I think 6-8 months ago or 5 months ago, Brazil imposed the Tobin tax. It didn't destroy their credibility. I'm saying all instruments are on the table. You have to keep your goals in mind. The goals for India are very clear. You got to keep inflation down, government's got to get the deficit under control, and you have to let the economy go. There are lots of micro things the Reserve Bank needs to do. I think, you know, I frankly, after having criticized them for years, the last year I've been delighted with them. But I still feel there is one thing they need to do, which hopefully it will come in the next monetary policy, not in the budget, is they really need to push banks to lend at rates which are linked to GSEC. So that way, the interest rate risk that companies carry, which is huge, can be managed.
Right, Mr. Mecklai, just to get in one quick take from you in terms of the rupee dollar rate, where do you see that? And yuan, you were talking about it earlier. Do you see a revision in the yuan value, and what might it be? Some people are saying 5%.
Yeah, I read that article myself. I just saw the headline a little while ago. Frankly, I don't know. You know, I mean, China has got its own game. I think China is much more than the world gives it credit for. Although the world gives it a lot of credit, but they also think, I think the Chinese way may well be the new way of going. As far as the rupee goes, I mean, my God, you know, I mean, how am I going to tell you? The only thing I know for sure is that there will be volatility, which is very good for me. Since, you know, you have me on the air and you want me to say something, I will say I think the rupee will move between 44 and 48 over the next 12 months, which is not too bad. It's much better than we have seen over the last 2 years. But, you know, forecasts are forecasts. They don't necessarily mean anything. The one thing that is clear is that there will be high volatility, 8% and up, and companies need to really be sensible in managing their risk.
Right, lots of volatility. Thank you, Mr. Mecklai, for joining us. I know everybody wants to try and get a number out, you know, whether it's 44 to 48. Samina, that's the outlook on the rupee dollar.
Indeed, Sonal, I think it's looking very, very volatile in the currency markets as well. But for now, that's all the time we have on the show. Thanks for watching. Up next is Biocell with Ashu and Anisha.